Hello, everyone. Day 3, Ord Compound House. We are not sleeping. We're keeping going on. But today, luckily, I got someone who's in the space. This is not a joke. Every time Bob tweets any thread, anything, I bookmark it. I come back. I have to read it. I got to break it down. So today, I'm joined by Bob Bodley, one of the top educators out there in the ordinal Bitcoin ecospace building Bionic market. Why don't you give a little intro to yourself? Tell us who you are, what you're working on.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here. I know you guys have been going nonstop. Sounds like the past 7 days. So really happy to be here. Happy you guys are still cranking it out. I'm Bob Bodley, CEO of Bionic. Been doing lots of deep dive technical content on Bitcoin for the last 18 months. Got in early on ordinals. It was February 6th. And I was convinced ordinals were February 6th, 2023. 2 weeks after Casey released the Ord protocol, and I was convinced it was going to be absolutely massive. Had all of the necessary ingredients to make a beautiful delicious ecosystem. So
yeah, well, it's funny when anyone says like a date. You say February, everyone knows you're talking about like how close to ordinals the release was. If you're here. Like, how did you, when it first actually the ordinal white paper came out or handbook came out, like, how did you know right away, oh, yeah, this is the thing?
Yeah, it was a combination of factors. If you look at what Casey released, it was an Explorer. It was a wallet. It was a Launchpad, like a minting service. So everyone could get in and be like, yeah, I want to mint. Yeah, I want to, create Explorers. I want to, it was all open source. Yeah. So part of it is just infrastructure readiness. It was like ready to go. The next part was like, lots of people getting in, lots of big money coming in on Ordinal Punks and other, what was the OG? Was it Ordinal Punks?
Bitcoin Punks.
Bitcoin. No.
No, you're right. It was Ordinal Punks
Ordinal
was
Punks,
original. Exactly. You're right.
Yeah.
Yes.
The OG. Yeah.
Sorry.
So big money. Yeah. Going in.
Okay, so you were already primed, like, to be able to see this thing as something like, oh, this is definitely like a revolution. Which, if you're in Nashville right now, there's a revolution happening. It really does feel like it. Like, what were you doing before that, like, primed you to know, oh my God, we're like, something's happening now? Like, what were you doing before this?
Yeah, had done quite a bit of Ethereum NFT trading. Also have been a full-time builder in crypto since 2021, building wallets, NFT marketplaces, NFT collateralized lending protocols, smart contract wallets, all kinds of smart contract tech. So very familiar with the NFT space just broadly in crypto, and was starting to dabble in kind of the cross-chain space when things just kind of took off on the Bitcoin side. Nice.
So you were already in this. I think a lot of us came from like, you can say Ethereum NFTs, the test net. It was a test net. It was great. We learned a lot over there. When you first like read like what Casey was putting out and the tools, what were the things you were like, yes, it fixed that? Or was it just like he just put out like a good vision of, I don't even know, like the value you already had? Were there any key fixes you thought versus what you were already working in?
Yeah, so 100% on chain for ordinals is fantastic. You have digital artifacts. You don't have to trust some kind of, off-chain data availability, essentially. That's kind of like roll-up lingo, but bringing NFTs 100% on-chain essentially gives you the full, security decentralization of Bitcoin for your digital assets, which, gives you this digital artifact quality of an NFT. It's kind of the highest quality that you can get for an NFT. And so that plus, the Bitcoin ecosystem is massive. There's a lot to love.
Yeah, I was going to say, remember, you can always hear a real person who's in this system because you're saying digital artifact, okay? We don't say NFT over here. We want to say digital artifact, which is different, right? There are rules that actually have to be, in place to be considered a digital artifact, which Ordinals forces you. So you started educating people, like, it seems like pretty much right away. You were one of the people who was like, breaking things down, trying to like, either move people who were just holding Bitcoin over to ordinals or people in like Solana or Ethereum over. What were like the first challenges you found when you were like educating people that like this was different? What were they saying to you of like that was what they weren't getting, I guess?
Yeah, obviously there's the maxi crowd. Yeah. And so that's
you were trying to get the maxis?
No one. Maybe like there are some that, the more open-minded that actually came over and started to appreciate ordinals.
Open-minded and maxi don't go together, though. Okay, I'm joking. Sometimes.
It's a spectrum.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a categorical, you have to be one or the other. And so I think there are some people kind of on the line.
Yeah.
But then, you could argue maybe they're not. Maybe they're not all the way over. Let's see. In the early days, it was like the Ord repo. Like the code itself was the alpha.
Yeah.
and you just had to, keep up on the PRs, on the commits. And that was, hey, cool new thing happening. Here's the code. Here's, here's what's going on.
So I'm always curious, like, because, I like to troll GitHub. I like to look at what people are saying here, but some people are a little intimidated, right, when you go over there. Where are you, like, drawing a line of saying someone like, hey, if you want alpha, you got to learn how to read GitHub PRs? Or can you always have like a layer of like, you can go through Bob, wait for the Bob thread? Like, were you telling like, I guess normies who weren't coding, hey guys, check it out, recursion's coming. Look here's the PR. Or do you send people over to GitHub? I don't know. Where do you think? How deep should you go if you're
in the very, very early days? You just had to go to GitHub. Yeah. But again, in the very early days, it's kind of a bit more scrappy, and you kind of have to dig deeper. So like to degen on something in the early days of ordinals, it was like, I'm creating custom Bitcoin transactions that have never been done before in the history of the world. And I have this script that does this crazy thing, or I have this new protocol, and, there may be a front end to do it and there may not be. And you might need to hack your ORD instance to go do something. And so it's very much like in the early days, it's like a super technical, you just gotta, have the chops to go in and get the alpha. Obviously that matures over time.
Totally. Yeah. So how has it changed? Like you educating people, like where do you find yourself focusing now versus so early on? It's like you're on the ground floor. You're trying to tell people there's a revolution happening. They're writing code over here. Get in. Right. As time goes on, obviously I've talked to so many marketplaces, wallets, people building tools, trying to get together. Like, what's the evolution been like of you onboarding like newbies into this world?
Right. I mean, initially, maybe the first, 3, 4, 5 months, it was all ordinals. You didn't have anything else. Totally. I mean, eventually we got Sats names, we got BRC20, we started having tokens. Now it's mostly new meta protocols coming out, people trying to do new things in new ways, making different trade-offs, or it's roll-ups, or it's zero knowledge, or it's a different landscape now from a technical perspective, just tons of people doing tons of crazy things all over the place. Yeah.
Okay. So this is an actual question where a lot of people out there, they're like, I'm working on a meta protocol. Okay. DMT 2.0. I've got something called LSD that's coming out. And, I'm in the chats. I hear what they're saying. They're saying one thing. They're saying, how do I get a Bob Bodley thread about my new protocol? Because that's how it's going to pop off. Like with so much stuff coming out, how do you know that, okay, I'm going to give my attention to this. Okay, DMT came out, and it's time for me to like break this down for people. Right. And other stuff that's like, I don't know if that's going to catch on. I'm going to wait for it to mature.
Yeah, it's less like what's going to catch on and more what is just really interesting and impactful, I think. I don't take money for any of the things that I do. I think it keeps me I
keep trying to give him money. He will not post any of my threads.
It keeps me an unbiased opinion on technology. And so haven't taken anything from anyone for any of my threads. And it's usually part traction and it's part the interestingness of the meta protocol. What unique problems are you solving? How are you doing your go-to-market? How are you trying to get traction? And it, sometimes things align and it's like, oh, that makes a ton of sense. Also, probably the ease with which I can get access to protocol information. Some of the docs are hypey and fluffy, and they don't mean anything. Totally. I go in and I try to understand it, and it's like, well, this is like impossible for me to try.
It's going to revolutionize the way Bitcoin works. And you're like, how?
Right.
It's a revolution. And I'm like, how?
Right. So I like the nitty-gritty technical stuff, but it can be very inaccessible sometimes. So it's kind of a mixture of all of that kind of put together.
Yeah, how do you like approach when you read something that's like kind of nitty-gritty technical? Like, what's your process for breaking that down? Are you just like reading it and then just writing down your questions and going out to like Discords and asking people? Are you like, looking at the code? How do you like learn exactly like the details?
Yeah, my favorite hack is I'll go to Claude 3.5 Sonnet and I drop in a PDF and I talk. I just ask questions like, okay, give me the high level, what is this doing? What is it trying to do? Yeah. How does it compare to other things? And that gives me like a general but imperfect understanding of the high level. And then when you dig in, it's like, oh, I remember, we chatted about this thing. Claude was wrong. Like this, the protocol does it differently, but it like sets your frame of mind, like gives you the background knowledge you need. And then you can go in and dive deep.
Totally. I was going to say that out here, that's what I'm doing. I'm treating humans like Claude. I'm just like, okay, cool. You're the BRC20 guy. I got 400 questions about 2.0. Let's go back and forth. And then they're like, leave me alone. It's been 10, 20 minutes of like.
Right. Yep.
Okay, so we've seen a couple things here. Obviously, there's I'm out here, we're talking. There's fights happening at the conference, right? There's BRC20 gangs. There's there's Rune gangs, right? They're fighting with each other, and then
I'm
here.
Broadway.
Oh yeah, they're out on Broadway. They're getting drunk, and it's just wait till 2.0. Casey made Runes and Ordinal. Like, Like, how do you find yourself interacting with those different groups? Like, for instance, was it easier to teach people BRC20 or easier to like kind of educate people on Runes?
Runes had a lot more hype. I mean, BRC20, I was talking to Domo yesterday, kind of reminiscing about the event, but it was, he said, these will be worthless, all caps, at the top of the BRC20 docs. And now it's a, I don't know, multi-billion-dollar total market cap protocol. So, we've never been more happy for Domo to be very, very wrong. But it was just...
I'm sure he's happy too.
It was a quiet night. He posted a thing. It was really cool, and then kind of took off. Runes was very much... I mean, it was hyped from the first blog post.
Totally. 100%.
Casey's blog post, and we had actual implementations the next 24 hours.
Totally.
And then, so it was a completely different type of release, and people knew way more about Runes than they knew about BRC20.
Totally. Well, it's like BRC20 laid that like groundwork where everyone's like, oh, there's something new coming. I can learn ahead of time.
Yeah.
So it's funny. We got BRC20. You got Runes. Both of them, they're fighting and competing, but there's updates then trying to happen to BRC, 20 right now. And I'm hoping to talk to Domo about this here. How do you look at those two markets yourself? And if someone new comes in, like it's always kind of hard when someone comes into a space and you're like, okay, well, you guys got shitcoins over here. Like there's two versions. Yeah. And like, how do you break that down for like the normie here who's like, I'm a Bitcoin maxi or I'm an Ethereum person. What do you got? Which I don't get the difference,
Right. I mean, best case scenario is we just abstract the difference and there is no difference. Technically that's hard to do right now, but I think there are some ways in the future. I mean, they're different marketplaces. You buy them on different places. They're like two separate token standards. I mean, this is, we're seeing a lot of user fragmentation and liquidity fragmentation in the Bitcoin ecosystem already. We're 18 months into Bitcoin season 2, and we're already seeing lots of this kind of, liquidity fragmentation across the ecosystem.
Yeah, I love like it took this long to get to season 2 in Bitcoin. It took a little bit of time. Like even like Bitcoin Nashville, like the hype, the vibes, it's unreal. I've been going to NFT conferences for many years now, 3+ years here. And I mean, this is the most time I've seen all my ETH friends. They're not on ETH anymore. All my Solana friends, they're still on Solana a little bit, but they're over here. How have you seen these other kind of communities like adapted? Is it like easier to get an ETH person to come over to Bitcoin, or for Solana people, or do you tell them like, don't worry about ordinals, come over here, I got Runes for you?
Yeah, it's actually funny. A lot of people were Bitcoiners at heart. That's what brought them into the crypto space, and then it was just impossible to do anything on Bitcoin. Impossible. Casey proved everyone wrong, so it wasn't actually impossible, but it was really hard for builders. And so naturally you go to where you can do something. And so, people started with Bitcoin and were like, oh, I can't really do anything here. Let's go to Ethereum. Let's go to Solana. Let's go to ETH-L2s. But then with all of the interest and excitement around Bitcoin now, people are coming back to Bitcoin. So it's not necessarily, ETH maxi coming to Bitcoin. It's a Bitcoiner who's always loved Bitcoin finally being able to do what they've always wanted to do on Bitcoin.
Totally. I mean, it's so funny because like you ask like a normie, like crypto, they think Bitcoin and crypto are one thing, right? They think all crypto is Bitcoin, et cetera. And I think a lot of us too, like that's how you get into it. Like you're saying, there's nothing to do. So you hold your money in a safe. What am I gonna talk about week over week with all my friends? So that actually is pretty interesting. As you're talking out here to all the different builders, because it's not just like, I think the ordinal like explosion which led to BRC20s and Runes and everything else, like it brought all these other people who were already building L2s on Bitcoin, all this other attention that was happening. Now we're talking ZK rollups. I was having ZK rollup debates over on Ethereum. Now they move over to Bitcoin. Like what is the interesting kind of stuff you're seeing now explode post this whole ordinal BRC Rune wave?
Yeah, I mean, this Bitcoin season 2 definitely kicked off with this, meta protocol hype. We had ordinals, BRC20, and then like a host of, I guess, Sats names, an OG in the meta protocol space. Counterparty is the OG meta protocol. was just like what a decade before its time.
Yeah, no, seriously, it's wild because I actually had some friends too who were counterparty maxis, and then the Ethereum 2021 bubble popped off, and they were like, "What? No, I'm over here. I got Rare Pepe's over here," and it was like, "Oh, you're sorry, man."
I still think we might have a counterparty resurgence. Something about historical provenance on Bitcoin assets, like counterparty hasn't had its moment yet. Yeah, but once you get better user experience, once you get some better ways with like token standard interoperability. I mean, you have BRC20 and Runes, but also counterparty assets are completely different than those two, and so you have yet another place to suck liquidity. But I think we might see some counterparty resurgence eventually once you get better user experience and things like that.
Totally. So you're someone who's actually super early on stuff always. You're checking out the new stuff. You're getting into the technical docs. A lot of times the UX is not going to be built out, right? So you're used to a little bit more friction. How do you as like a educator tell a normie, hey, it's time to come over here? Or other times you're like, dude, it's a little too rough. Like, are you like waiting for some like, I don't know, advancements to happen before you tell other people? Or do you just like say like, dude, if you want to get in the trenches, get in the trenches?
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing from my side is I'm just trying to educate people on the tech. And so it's not really do I ape or do I not ape? I mean, other people can make that choice. For me, it's just like, how does this tech compare to other pieces of technology? What are the affordances? What are the trust assumptions? What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks? And that's kind of my attempt at objectivity in evaluating technology. Yeah. And then if someone's like, hey, I want to ape into something crazy, I can be like, well, there are lots of places to do it. And, they can assess based on the technology. But I'm not going to tell people like, hey, you got to go ape into this thing right now.
Totally. So what would you say is like we got ordinals, BRC20 runes, like what are the things you think that are missing that you could actually help get a lot of people in a lot faster? What do you find like the hiccups every time you're educating someone where it's like, okay, this is going to be rough, don't worry, but you're going to get through it? Like, where are those areas? Because there's builders out here that we can, we'll fix it today.
Right. Part of this is UX, user experience, not just in Bitcoin, but in crypto generally. When you think about the really popular apps that have gone a little bit more mainstream, they all have something in common, and it's just flawless, seamless user experience. If you can one-click login, no browser extension, no seed phrase, that's like smart contract wallet behind the scenes, log in with a pass key like with Google or with your fingerprint, and then you automatically have a wallet. If you can get started without having to pay gas, if you can do some abstraction on the gas fee layer, and then if users can just come in and do fun things that don't even require tokens, come in, get an asset for free, come start playing our game, and then you kind of onboard that way. In that way, you're not catering to an ecosystem. You're building a product with product market fit with users in the real world. And so as we can abstract all of the technical parts of crypto into the background, I think we start to see more adoption, because who really cares about the tech? Like, who cares if you build a website
I care.
Like AWS versus Google Cloud versus a Linux stack versus a different stack. Like, who cares about the tech in the broader scheme? And let's just build awesome applications that are really easy to use for tons of users that want to come and do something fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's no one who like opens up a website and immediately opens up developer tools and it's like, oh my God, they're serving from S3 Amazon. I'm a Microsoft boy. I'm out of here.
There actually might be people like that.
I don't think I gotta be honest. I hang out with hardcore nerds. I actually am like an AWS nerd. That's my preferred cloud. Sorry, Jeff, you're getting all my money. But like, I really don't think I've met anyone who is like, they don't care about what cloud you're on as long as you're doing the product, So like,
I mean, tech stack maybe though, like, oh, you built this website using this kind of framework and this is an inferior framework and your website is not as good because you're not using the right tech stack.
Well, it's funny. There's a rumor in the not a rumor, in the programming world, we often joke around. It's like the coolest tech stacks make the least money. It's this funny thing where like dude, I'm building it in HTMX and Rust, which is that's a cool tech stack. And then it's like, cool, dude, have you made any money? No, I'm in PHP and I'm doing $1 million a month. And everyone's like, damn, dude, I wish it was a PHP,
Yeah, I mean, WordPress dominance for websites is a real thing. So
100%, yeah. Okay, so there's also right now, there's been like kind of like a wallet war, a platform war going on. There's just so many. I think back in like the Ethereum big boom, it was like MetaMask. The majority, like 90% of my friends were just using MetaMask, and some people would talk about, okay, here's a competitor, here's that. That's expanded a little bit in the ETH world, but over it seems in Bitcoin land, like it is just, most of my friends are running an Xverse, a Unisat, a Phantom, a Magic Eden, etc. How do you like tell people to like how do you pick one? It's so much more complicated than it felt like back in the day. It was just do MetaMask, don't worry about it.
Right. I was chatting yesterday about tech, and there is this process of bundling and unbundling. Mm-hmm. And you can explain almost every like successful business as a bundling, we do all of these things all in one. You just come in, you pay, and you have it all. And then you have the complete opposite where it's unbundling, like, they might do all these things, but we specialize here and we're the greatest at it.
Gotcha, yeah.
And so I've started to view a lot of tech like this process of bundling and unbundling. You have a lot of market leaders, on Ethereum, all of the NFTs gravitated to OpenSea because they were the kings of liquidity. That was the bundling phase. And then you start to have other people trying to like chip away at their market share. And when they get the right product market fit, you start to have some unbundling occur because they're now finding a new use case that people love. And so in the wallet space, I view it the same way. You're going to have a lot of these wallets move cross-chain, which is what we're seeing. So you have lots of cross-chain wallets now. But eventually we're going to see some kind of consolidation, like a bundling where it's just, there's going to be a wallet that's really, really, really fantastic. And it's going to be awesome for a particular use case. And then people are going to start to gravitate, and you get the kind of bundling process, perhaps, where we consolidate into some. Yeah,
that's super interesting. Sorry, that's such an interesting point because, like, so there's like Magic Eden right now. Magic Eden, they are really the platform is kings. Going after. It's funny. It's like back in the day, Magic Eden versus OpenSea. And Magic Eden was this. OpenSea was this. I know. And it's just like, whoops. And a bunch of that was they adopted Bitcoin ordinals very early, right? They said, okay, cool.
Hackathons.
Ordinals,
flew people out. It was so they got a whole bunch of developers together, and it was like I can't remember how long it was, but it was like 2 weeks or something, and it was just like hackathon like crazy, and they just like cranked it out.
That is amazing, yeah.
Which as from like a strategic point of view, like brilliant.
Yeah.
To just bring everyone together, solve all the problems, just like crank.
Totally. But so now because of that, like early on runes, early on ordinals, but also they got the Solana people, they got the ETH people.
Yeah.
Now on other sides, it seems like over here you got your Xverse, OKX people who are like, focused on Bitcoin, right? Like on one single thing. Like if someone new is coming in, how do you tell them, like, are you saying, okay, are you on all the chains? All right, maybe Magic Eden. No, cool, you're Bitcoin. Let's go. Don't worry. Let's just go straight to Xverse. Like, how do you tell someone to like pick one or the other or teach them an evaluation framework to like decide which one to use?
Yeah, I think the real answer is it depends. I had a conversation with someone at Inscribing Nashville, and I kind of start out to gauge their knowledge. Like, do you know anything about crypto? And they're like, I don't know. Like, do you know Bitcoin? And they're like, meh. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. Like then we have to kind of walk back until we can find like some common ground. So sometimes it's like, hey, go to Venmo and buy Bitcoin on Venmo.
Yeah.
Like that's the easiest step for them to start getting some experience on, I hold Bitcoin. It was really easy, just $5 on Venmo. And now I can start to feel what it's like to hold Bitcoin. I can check the balance. I can check the price. You start to just see it more in your life. And like you slowly start to be like, okay, like this is, I hold Bitcoin now. So that's like the easiest baby step.
Yeah.
In other cases with like really smart people, you just kind of like streamline it. Like, Magic Eden is, has all the liquidity. Go get an Xverse wallet. Log into Magic Eden, and make sure you save your Xverse seed phrase somewhere. Just go in, play around, find a ordinal you can buy for quadruple 01 or whatever, a couple dollars, and then just hold it and see how you feel and see how it looks in your wallet and see like it's all about baby steps.
Yeah. Well, I always thought this funny thing of like, you want to learn about something right when you actually own it. There's some money. All of a sudden your brain kicks in and you're like, okay, I want to hear a little more Bitcoin news. Like, why? I got $5 in it. It's like before you're like, I don't care. It's like, I got $5, bro. This is important. Wait, there's news coming out. Trump's about to talk about Bitcoin.
Right.
What's he about to say? This could affect my bag, So.
Right.
Yeah. if someone like, if they want to actually learn about the space, I mean, obviously Twitter or X is like one of the hot spots right here, but then there's all these other, there's Discord, there's the Ordicore, there's, GitHub, there's all these places. Like, where do you direct people to join? Like, what's the community you direct them to like learn and join?
Yeah, that one's hard because again, everyone is so unique in like where they're coming from. And so honestly,
you're like, oh, you seem like a puppet, going with a puppet. Okay, you're a bit of an OMB. Go with the OMB.
Yeah, it's like a one-on-one conversation is the best way.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I mean, I can talk about what I like, but I don't really tell people, hey, go buy this and get rich
No, I read every single Bob thread, never telling me what to buy. I'm like, the last one, it's going to say 7 of 7 and it's going to be, and then make sure you invest. I'm like, it's never happened.
Invest here, buy. Yeah. It's going to the moon.
I have to bookmark it. I got to break it down. I learn all this stuff. I'm like, I don't know what to buy. You didn't tell me what the ticker was, at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
So talking to there's maxis here. They're running around here, right? Like, there's not just like maxis. There's people there's like all the maxis who are just put it on Bitcoin. Don't talk about L2s, dude. Just, it's money, it's gold. Don't store it. There's all the ordinal, BRC20, Rune MFers who are like protocols. Let's build new stuff, exciting stuff. Then there's this other like in between crowd, right? I kind of think like the L2 people, right? How's been your interaction with like those at this conference? Are you talking to a lot of people who are saying like, dude, you're paying that much, to buy your ordinal? I gotcha.
The L2 crowd is very smart. Some of the smartest technical people I know. I mean, I would probably separate them. There are some L2s that are just kind of like cash grabs, or they're just looking to pump a token.
Yeah.
So it's like a nice VC pump and dump kind of scheme. They're like, they don't have much documentation. Their technical GitHubs aren't great.
The website's a beautiful splash page that says an L2 scaling Bitcoin. You're like, how?
Yeah.
Scaling.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there are definitely some of those, but there are some very smart technical people. Some of, some brilliant zero knowledge minds.
Yeah.
Building rollups on Bitcoin, and I chat with all of them because they're all very smart and all working on crazy ways to try to verify validity proofs on Bitcoin and try to scale Bitcoin in a way that you can inherit the security and decentralization of Bitcoin L1.
Yeah. So do you find yourself like, another thing that I see a lot of people coming from other chains, other places, is all of a sudden you got 10-minute block times. And I'm like, what the heck? I was on Solana before. I was on, Photon, click and buy, click and sell. There was 5 seconds in between them. I lost all my money. How do you talk to people about like the time limitations of Bitcoin when you kind of recruit people over here?
Yeah, I mean, this is also kind of a user experience hurdle, I think. Having unpredictable block times, it's actually fairly predictable that as soon as you make a transaction and you're watching the mempool, you won't see a block for like an hour.
It's amazing. It's a watch block never confirms. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like, wild.
I think there's something on the mempool.space site, and the more eyes that are on it, it starts to like 100%. Keep blocks from being from being mined.
Yeah, it's if you want to slow down time, you're just like, I need to slow things down. Inscribe something, pull up mempool space, and then you're just like, what is happening? How
has it been 45 minutes?
Yes,
yeah. So I mean, it's the result of the beautiful proof of work consensus on Bitcoin, but definitely annoying on the user side. And you kind of have to teach people, you make a transaction and you almost have to watch it in the mempool. Yeah. Otherwise you're like, you make the transaction, your balance disappears, you check your destination and it hasn't appeared. And you're like, where are my tokens? Yes. You think you did something wrong. You think you shipped it off into the abyss.
100%. My hands are sweaty. I'm calling all my technical friends. Like, I lost all my money. And you're like, wait, what do you mean? You're like, I don't know, man. I tried to spend 0.03. Right. It took 0.3. And then they're like, oh, dude, we got to stop and talk about UTXOs. We got to educate you. Right. Actually, that's a kind of interesting combo. How often has that happened to you where someone is like, didn't understand exactly how like the UTXO like model works?
And all the time. It's an education process. Yeah. You have to learn like how UTXOs work, and you have to learn how the mempool works, and you have to learn how the fees that you set on your transactions work. Some people will do something and they'll be like, hey, it's been 6 days. And then I check their transaction. It's because they did like 3 sats per VB or something.
It's going to get through one day.
Yeah, they're
one day.
Because on other chains, you could potentially just do a low fee and just wait, like, I don't know.
I used to do that on Ethereum. I would say like a real, and then I would like, all of a sudden, like, at midnight it went through or some random time. Yeah.
On Bitcoin, depending on the fee structure, it might not go through for months. Yeah. And so that type of experience is not ideal for users.
Yeah. Well, no, it's funny. There's I guess like 2 sides, because I actually do hear some people on the other side where they're like, oh, it's a little slower over here. It's kind of nice. I was dying. I was over on Solana and Photon. I literally put in 1 Sol. 10 seconds later, it was 0 Sol. Here, I put in my not 1 Bitcoin.
Yep.
My 0.001 Bitcoin, and at least I had some time to chill before everyone can sell. Like, I don't know. There's, I guess, different advantages. Yep. Do you find yourself like getting more people who were like Solana native or ETH native or coming to Bitcoin? Like, which group kind of like adapts to it faster?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I've talked to people from lots of chains. Yeah. Like every chain. These are the Bitcoiners that that went off and did other things that are now coming back to the mother chain or the grandfather chain or whatever.
We got to decide who is this chain and how are they related. Is it mother? Is it grandfather? Is it my daddy chain? I don't know.
I know. Maybe it's all of the above.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So another thing, like I guess with this new space, I mean, because it is moving so very fast here. There's also updates happening to ordinals all the time, right? There's recursion, parent-child, et cetera, like, new updates to the actual ord client that are happening. We can now self-reference our own, endpoints and whatnot. How do you keep up with the ordinals coming out that are utilizing these things? Do you just have a list of, 1 million DMs or something like, I innovated, I've got double parent, triple recursion, revert,
Right. Yeah, usually you can tell because they talk about all the cool things they're doing. And so you have Pizza Pets. Pizza Pets are going to do lots of crazy stuff. I was chatting with Ordinals Bot about it, and it's really fun. Yeah. But you also have some people that have kind of branded themselves as Ordinals innovators.
Totally. Like LIFOs or...
LIFO or Sanj or like others that they just have a knack for Ordinals experimentation.
Yeah.
And so those are the people to follow because they're going to be the ones that are like, hey, I need to get this PR in because I want to do this crazy thing. And here's the interesting way that I'm doing it. Billy, maybe we'll add Billy to the list as well. Billy's done a lot of really
100%. Every time there's some art release, I'm like, okay, there's the art visually, and how did he do it? What did he do? Oh, God, he's got different people remixing the art on chain.
Yes, exactly.
That's actually a fun question of like, who do you got noties on for? Who are the people that you're actually on Twitter, on X, you're like, these are the people, they say something, I need to read it right now. I don't know if you're a notification person.
I am. Well, so I've turned off notifications for everything all the time, everywhere. Yeah. So my phone, like no notifications.
Well, not just on the main phone, but inside Twitter. No.
Yeah, but so inside Twitter, I do have a few. It's usually the more technical side of things. So like, what's a good example? Dan Held is a fun one.
Okay, nice.
Udi, even though he trolls everyone.
That's the problem. Udi, I'm like, half the time I'm like, oh, something really cool.
I know.
The other time I'm like, stop making fun of my other bags, bro. Leave me alone.
I know. Eric Wall has a lot of really good technical ZK content. Anyway, I have 5 or 10.
Okay, 5 or 10. Okay, you keep it kind of middle. You got Casey though, right?
I don't think Casey made the cut.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Well, I'm saying Casey also, you never know what he's posting about. You know what I mean? Half the time it's a troll. Other half, nice. Yeah. For that, like the technical stuff, how do you find yourself interacting with the actual developers? Are you ending up talking to them, whether that be on the Ordicord when they're working on something, or through GitHub issues, et cetera? How do you this whole community of
For the most part, it's just a lot of side conversations. Yep. So they'll be working on something super awesome. They'll be like, "Hey, I want some feedback. Here's what I'm doing," and I'll read through it, and then we'll have a nice conversation about it. That's pretty common.
Yeah. So if you're a developer actually out there, you're like, "Okay, cool. I'm being serious, Bob. You know how it is. You get a Bob thread. It's like we're in the game. You know what I mean? And a lot of developers, they're really good at making cool technical stuff. Terrible at explaining it to anyone. You explain it's a revolution. How? It's okay. So do you understand? And then 5 hours later, I'm like, what does it do? Why do I care? How do you present information to you in an effective way to I don't know, make your job easier, make it so you're more interested right away? Is it demos? Is it like, do you just want like white papers? You want GitHubs?
Yeah, I mean, the more docs, the better. And
you actually read? Or you're like the only one out here.
Yeah, I mean, it's, similar to what I said before, where you just kind of have to, it's the confluence of like traction plus people talking about it, plus interestingness, plus like solving new problems in new ways.
So where do you find yourself like spending most of your time actually like, interacting with people? Is it like a Discord? Is it an X? Is it a Telegram?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All of them. Really.
Yes.
You're split down. You're all right in the middle.
It's everywhere.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. I was gonna say it's one of the things out here. I will say every time you come to like a conference, there's always a different flavor. I'm always calculating how like who's asking where, and they're on the Telegram out there. It's Telegram. We're back. Because I mean, for a while there, it felt like Discord was like the home of ordinals. Yeah. But out here in person, the conference, it feels like it's all Telegram. So.
Yep. Telegram, Twitter. Occasionally, I get a LinkedIn, and that's a weird one.
Oh,
but
no, I don't. LinkedIn, I can't even go. I don't have a LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I refuse to. As a developer, I refuse to get one.
Yeah.
Because I already get reached out by too many people, and I have recruiters reach out to me and say, "I found you on LinkedIn." I go, "No, you didn't. You liar." Yeah. So I can't even see who they are. So maybe let's just dive in. Bionic. Want to tell us a little bit about it? Like, what are you building? How's it working? What's going on?
Yep. So we wanted to build an ordinals marketplace that kind of fixed a lot of the user experience issues on Bitcoin L1. Yep. Slow block times. People can snipe your purchases. In fact, sniping is happening all the time now.
We had to talk
about sniping. In fact, mempool is the new marketplace.
Yes.
And so for all of those reasons, we wanted predictable block times. We wanted low fees. We wanted fast transactions. We wanted to enable people to do more with their ordinals and with their BRC20 and runes. I know most people just sit in the wallet and look cool, and you get airdrops.
Yeah. The airdrops are awesome. Great feature. Love it.
But like some people might want to stake their ordinal and earn a runes token, or a staking game like Wolf Game, or let's actually do cool things with our assets.
Totally.
And that's what we're trying to enable at Bionic. So to do that, you take your ordinals and you bridge them over. So you have to move them over to a new chain, a new Bitcoin layer. You take your Bitcoin and do the same thing. And now you can move at the cost and speed of the Bitcoin layer, which is fast and low fee, rather than at Bitcoin L1. It does add some additional trust assumptions, of course, because now you're on a layer that's not Bitcoin. But you have a new way that you can interact with your assets.
Totally. So if you're so there's all the people who are like the consumers, but then there's also all of, I guess, the like builders, companies, markets. Like, did you find yourself, are you trying to like recruit people who are, okay, cool, you got an ordinal collection. Hey, let's talk to you, Bionic. Like, let's get you over here. Or are you more targeting, like, I guess, the consumers?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem for marketplaces, and you'll see this for any ordinals marketplace other than Magic Eden, is you have the famous chicken and the egg problem, the double-sided marketplace problem. Yes. Marketplaces are notoriously difficult because you need buyers to get sellers and you need sellers to get buyers. And so you have to bootstrap that somehow. Totally. So you have to have some kind of killer go-to-market or some kind of unique use case. Looking at the ordinals marketplace setup right now, we don't have a good example of kind of maybe OKX, but that's because they have killer distribution. But even then, it's still, small. Yeah. Unisat, because they, highly specialized. And so, they got some good traction. But then otherwise, we have a lot of examples of really good founders building really good tech that have yet to kind of break out. Totally. And so it's not easy. And I would say Bionic, we still haven't reached that point where we've kind of broken out. I mean, we have a lot of really great tech, and the user experience is good, and we're making inroads in a few places, but it's still very much kind of work to be done. Yeah,
it's interesting. It's like I remember in the ETH NFT days and the heyday in OpenSea. It was literally go to OpenSea, check 1 hour volume. And that's how you're deciding what to buy. And you're just on 1 hour volume, and you're telling your friend in the Discord, hey, this one looks pretty good. Okay, I saw the traits. No one's buying this rare trait. It's like, we're not there, because I do check. I check it for Magic Eden at least. Like how do you look at, like, I don't know, recruiting new projects to make sure, like, okay, we're trying to launch on Bionic, so that way we're getting someone, or is it more you want that like secondary volume? Right. Yeah, I think that from our perspective, onboarding new creators and creating high quality projects
is the best way to kind of grow a marketplace. Right now, we can do things like at the conference this week, we've done a few free claims, and it's free, like free, like no network fees, no.
Which means it's not free for him. It's not free for Bob. That's the pay. When things are actually free, someone is paying. But yeah.
But the nice thing is because we're on this other Bitcoin layer, it's like cents or
totally,
cheaper.
Totally.
We have this thing called reserved ordinals. This is a new kind of dynamic. I think it's going to kind of become more popular, but you mint a token on a different Bitcoin layer. So it's not native to Bitcoin. And that token grants you the right to inscribe it whenever you want.
Totally.
So it's like a IOU ordinal in a way. And the benefit is creators can come in and launch these, and it's very, very low cost.
Yeah, totally.
And then you can even start to trade these kind of IOUs, and then whenever the users want to, they can then go and inscribe it to Bitcoin, and it's a fully fledged ordinal. Gotcha. And no one else can like steal the asset and go and inscribe it because you have kind of provenance.
Yeah.
But yeah, reserved ordinals are kind of a cool innovation, and we have lots of interesting ideas there.
Yeah, that's super interesting because I think we're almost starting to see this idea in ETH NFTs, and then it's like ordinals came out and everyone just like stopped talking about it. Where it's you start with IPFS. And maybe you get to on-chain, you know what I mean? Or maybe you start with an Amazon link, then you get to IPFS, then you get to on-chain. Like things don't have to start at the most permanent ever. You know, how does that feel when you're like interacting with, I guess, people who are more on like maybe the ordinal maxi side of like, or is there resistance of like, whoa, why don't I owe you? I want it right now, or what's that been like?
Yeah, I mean, from a user experience perspective, it's really fantastic. We use Web3 Auth as our authentication for Bionic, which is a little bit jarring if you're coming from Xverse, Unisat. So we have additional wallet authentication methods coming. But the beauty of Web3 Auth is you can just log in with Google. You're not trusting Google. It's a multi-factor authentication. So you have a private key share. Google would then, your authentication with Google would have a private key share, and then there would be a third private key share that would be sent to you. So it's like a multi-party kind of setup. But with the free claim, we had people that came in, you hit, you scan the QR code, you log in, you say log in with Google, then you hit claim and you're done. It's like 3 clicks, boom, 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 and you're done. Like, we really want the easiest user onboarding possible. And so we're starting to get there.
Okay, totally. Yeah, so if you're a like builder out there, like you're launching an ordinals project, is that someone who should be reaching out to Bionic and being like, okay, hey, I'm trying to launch something. I mean, I don't know if this collection is going to be successful right away. I don't necessarily have the money. I want to do a 10,000 collection, and I don't want to spend a fortune. Like, are those the people like that should be reaching out and being like, hey, we need to work with you, or is it just like anyone can do it right now?
Yeah. So we are working on a unique community fueled launchpad idea. So with launchpads, you have kind of 2 ends of the spectrum. One is open, free for everyone.
Yes.
And that's fantastic because everyone can come in and launch things. The downside is from the buyer side, you have a plethora of supply.
Well, I'm like, how many launches every day? How many of these are scams? How many are good?
And so it's almost impossible for a buyer to go in and make good decisions on how do I navigate this launchpad? Totally. On the other hand, you have like the very permissioned launchpads where nobody can get in unless you're like magically cherry picked because you have the right kind of traction.
In the cabal. You went to some shadowy meeting.
And so we want to do something in the middle where as users interact on Bionic, they earn reputation. And that reputation is based on, their loyalty to the platform, essentially. Reputation is like like you can't trade your reputation. It's like connected to your identity. And then when a new project wants to launch, they come in and say, hey, I'm going to launch this project. It's going to be awesome. And then people vote on whether they want that project to launch or not.
Okay, gotcha.
And so it's based on the Bionic community. Nice. And the more money you're trying to raise with your launch, the more support you need from the community.
Gotcha.
So if you go in and say, I want to make $10 million and here's why my project's awesome, you're going to need like full community support as opposed to someone that's like, hey, I want to make $100. Here's my cool kind of thing. So
totally.
I think that kind of balances these 2 ends of the spectrum, and it lets anyone come in and propose hey, I want to launch this thing, and is there community support for it? Totally. And if you get it, then great. We'll launch it all and make it all happen.
Okay, so if I'm just like a consumer, I'm just buying ordinals and buying runes, whatnot. How do I build my reputation? What are like the right moves? What are the ways my reputation goes down then on Bionic?
Yeah, I mean, so we will have a creator reputation score, but that doesn't matter as much as just getting users that with high reputation to come in and vote on your launch. So,
but how do I build? Like, what is the actual tracking?
For users, it's going to be like a combination of what do you hold in your wallet and what kind of volume have you done on Launchpad and Marketplace. So it's kind of like a interesting trifecta score. It's just based on platform activity. The more you do, and the more recent you've done it, the more reputation you'll have to then vote because you're the most active on the platform. So you should get a bigger say in who comes on the. I came there and
I got one free claim, one time, and I'm like, guys, I'll tell you who we should be, minting or not. I'm like, bro, you're not of here, so
right. So it's the most active. The people that trade the most will have the most.
Nice.
Say.
Yeah. Well, actually, I did not even know about this layer. Is there any other things about Bionic that I should know about? If I'm like someone coming from the outside that.
Yeah. One of the other things we're working on is I'll call it like a game engine. Okay. So imagine people have ordinals, people have runes, people have BRC20, and you want to do more with your ordinals. Yeah. Any combination of that, we have kind of this. We call it a levels protocol. Like imagine all of the different game mechanics. There's like. You can airdrop something, you could earn something, you could do an action, you could stake, you could steal, you could trade, you could swap. So these are all like different mechanics, kind of the underlying components that make up like a fun staking game, for example.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So this kind of game engine will let anyone come in and say, hey, I have this kind of JSON, JSON kind of like your BRC20s, protocol, et cetera, but you're specifying game actions, game interactivity. And so you can come in with this JSON and it'll just get sucked into the Bionic platform and you'll have an interesting way to stake and earn a runes token, or you'll have an interesting way to upgrade your ordinal over time or something like that.
So if I'm a builder out there, I've got a project. I'm like, okay, I've got the art. I know what I'm inscribing and I got some sats collected, but all these other features, I don't want to build them necessarily.
Right.
And then I'd come over to Bionic, and it's like, cool, I got my staking, I got my features, I got my et cetera. You mentioned a couple times here, on the east side, were you playing any of these like play-to-earn games, any of these staking games? Were you in?
Yeah.
So, I'm curious what you learned over there. I mean, you mentioned Wolf Game. I was a Wolf Game OG, still have all my Wolf Game up.
Nice. One of the early ones was EtherOrcs.
Yes, yeah.
EtherOrcs was like one of the first like on-chain NFTs on Ethereum, fully on-chain. And they created a Polygon bridge. Mm-hmm. So you would bridge Ethereum to Polygon, which makes sense because you want to do game stuff. Totally. And you want it to be, fractions of a cent.
I was paying at one point in Wolf Game, the fees I was paying, I was like, I'm just claiming some wool. Just cool. $15 here. Oh, gas is high. $50 over here. But I'm getting a free sheep. It's worth, $2,000.
Yep.
Things changed.
So, EtherOrcs was a really fun one.
Yeah.
And just seeing the model. I mean, a lot of those can turn into kind of, Ponzi. The earlier in you are, the better. But I think there are ways to do it in a more productive, slow growth over time, even way that isn't just like whoever dumps the most at the very beginning is gonna destroy everyone else.
The PDE model was get in early. Right when it's hyped,
and
get out.
And go hard.
Yeah, go hard, and then when the normies are on,
and then get out.
If I see normies on Twitter posting, if I see a Twitter space, I'm like, there's a Twitter space. Time to sell all this stuff here. Nice. Since you're so technical, do you look at other like chains in space? You look at Solana, Ethereum, what they're building, and like try and like bring over those lessons to Bitcoin, or are you just filled up with like Bitcoin stuff these days?
Definitely keeping up on cross-chain stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
Been thinking a lot about Ordinals Launchpad a la Pump.fun.
Yes.
Essentially, bonding curve. Bonding curve lets you kind of buy and sell throughout the launch. It's kind of like liquidity bootstrapping for Ordinals. Something like that could be interesting, but
or destroy Ordinals, or destroy runes, or destroy BRC20.
Destroy it all. Yeah. But a lot of people are doing this kind of bonding curve based buy sell to bootstrap liquidity initially, and then you essentially transfer liquidity somewhere else and burn the tokens you get back to claim that liquidity, so you have a little bit more stability kind of launching new tokens. So
totally.
Yeah.
I will say it's an easy sell to any DJ. The pump.fun of ordinals, pump.fun of runes, everyone's like, don't even tell me more. What's the URL and what do I buy? Yeah. What are the? Well, that's another one. Like you've got because runes has just been such a different landscape of what are the memes and tickers that people care about. Every place is a different flavor. I have to read every old Casey blog post to try and find out what to buy here. Like how have you find yourself like finding what the memes are in that world? Do you look at that world too? Because it seems like you're above board. You're real technical. I don't know. Interesting. Are you like? I don't know. What are your feelings about Wanko Manko? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think so. You can either be a really good builder or a really good content creator or a really good DGen.
Okay.
And you have to pick one.
Yeah.
And beyond that, you start to pull away from the others. If you want to be a good builder and do good content, then it's going to be hard, but you can do it. But there's no time to DGen. And so, I'll dabble occasionally just to, try things out, when I want to lose some money and feel something. Yeah,
a little Friday night, have a couple drinks. Maybe I'm going to spend a little money, lose a little money,
But otherwise, I do like to buy, but generally I'm just holding for a long time because it's just easy.
Totally.
And focus more on builder content.
Totally. I will say, I look at pump.fun for more than an hour, and then I try and go develop. My brain's fried. Yeah. I literally feel like it's like burned a hole in my brain, and I'm like, I can go from pump.fun to TikTok. Yeah. I can't go from pump.fun to GitHub. It's a little bit of a struggle. So yeah, super sync, dude. Bob, no joke. Thank you so much for all the education you've given. I'm not joking. I got noties on. Every time you post a thread, bookmarked, I have to read it 3 times, and then I go to all my ordinal friends. I'm like, what does this mean? What's going on here? So you've done so much for the space, like, educating anyone. Before we wrap up, anything else that people should be looking forward to, Bionic or just anything? What are you doing next?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about interoperability. I mean, we have a lot of user and liquidity fragmentation on Bitcoin with just the growth of all of these different protocols. And so thinking about how we can solve some of these kind of interoperability problems.
Totally.
So, building a lot in that direction right now, and we'll see where it goes.
Awesome. Beautiful, dude. Bob, thank you so much again. Everyone, Bob Bodley, follow him on X, on Twitter. Like, no joke. You want to actually learn about the space, not read threads of, if you buy this rune, you're going to get rich. If you buy this ticker, you're going to go up. Actually learn how things work. Like, one of the most valuable follows here. Bionic, definitely check it out. If you're a builder, go over and definitely check it out too. You got both sides on there. Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks so much.
I'm excited to see what's next here. So, beautiful. Jerry, we're done. Thank you, guys. We're going to see you in a minute for some more. Hello, everyone. Back at the Ord compound, and I'm super excited for this. One of my favorite people in the whole art space. Every time some fun art thing's happening, I'm in Schwipto's DMs saying, yo, did you see this? Yo, what's your opinion on this? Top collector of a bunch of collections, always on not just like crypto art, all art, right? Whether that be vintage digital art, other art, you just seem to collect everything under the sun here. And one of the people who's like actually advocating for artists, like lifting them up, helping spread the word and whatnot. So Schwipt, why don't you give a little intro to who you are, what you do, what's going on?
Yeah, thank you. That's perfect. And you even pronounced my name right.
I'm getting better. I'm still feel rough at it. The way I try and do it is I try and say it sarcastically in my head. Schwimptow. Like,
Schwimptow. All my business partners call me Shrimpy, which is a joke. So my original background was an artist, 2006 to 2016. I was a working artist. Other job as well, like 99% of artists.
Of course, a real artist. If you I want to say, how rich are your parents?
Yeah, I was doing contracting work at the time. And I had to take over the family business in 2016, which was a physical rehab hospital. So I ran that from 2016 to 2021, sold that in 21, and then went pretty much all in on rural land and JPEGs.
Rural land and JPEG. That's the real alpha, people.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I was going to say, if we're in Bitcoin Nashville, rural land really appeals to a lot of people here. There's a lot, the libertarian mindset is around, and you tell people I got acres, they're like, you're smart. Yeah. You're smart. Okay, good. Yeah.
Oh, when at the peak of the 21 frenzy, I was like, shit, I wish I hadn't bought all that land. But I'll tell you what, now my land bags have outperformed my JPEG bags for sure.
God, I need a land bag. I'm in LA, zero land bag, not working for me.
Oh, and north of Dallas.
Okay, that's the move.
Super cheap. The city is just surging north, and so yeah, you can.
Okay, already alpha north of Dallas. That's a move. So you were already artist before. I've talked to Schwipto before about the art you were doing. You were fucking with people. You were, you know what I mean. You were in the game.
I brought one with me.
You brought really? You did?
I brought one with me. Yeah.
So yeah. Well, I don't want to get a little background. Like, what were you doing with your art before all this then?
So originally I was just very much a representational artist. Paint a picture of a thing. As I kind of got more abstract, as a lot of artists tend to, where I landed, where my practice kind of has landed, and what I'm still sort of focused on at the moment is light traps. Objects with a hole in them where light can go in the hole, but it cannot come back out, generally speaking. And it creates this kind of like blacker than Vanta, like the blackest black you'll ever see.
Watch out. You'll get sued if you keep saying that. Okay, you can't say blacker than Vanta. It's legally the blackest black. Okay, watch out.
Are you familiar with CCO except Anush Kapoor?
Of course, yeah. Of course. I love it. Okay,
anyone can use it, but
the guy who made the blackest black said no one can use this blackest black, and then someone was like, well, fine, then I'll make a blacker black than the black, and it was
and he didn't even make it. He bought the rights from the guy that did make the lab that made it, and
bullshit.
Told nobody can use it but him. Yeah. But I will say, when he did
he made the bean. The bean
was awesome.
He made the bean in Chicago, cool. So that's like the hottest spot if you're there.
That was, and he painted it in Vanta. Did you see when he did it?
No,
in Vanta?
I missed that.
He painted the bean.
Oh
in
wow!
Vanta.
Oh wow!
It's a trip, man. It just becomes this hole in the sky.
Yeah. Wait, and he didn't do pink as. Who did the pink as pink after to troll him?
Stuart Simple.
Okay, nice. See, Schwipto knows everyone. That's the key. I'm like pulling random art stuff in my head. You know the people, but
well, and the light trap that I brought with me is Stuart Simple's Black 2.0.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, cool.
4.0.
Okay, wait. So break down this light trap to keep going with that. I don't quite understand yet.
Well, and part of why the light traps are so interesting to me, you have receptors in your eye that are tuned to the lack of light.
Okay.
And it's why you can feel someone watching you, because pupils are light traps. And so if you make a large enough light trap, it's very unnerving. Like my wife doesn't like being in the room with her. Like it's weirdly unnerving.
Which is good art. And you think it's unnerving. That's what I like. That's what I'm into.
Well, like another part of my practice was casting wasp nests in resin with the wasps on them as like hat pins and
wait. How many times have you been stung then? Were you getting is this
no, dead wasp. No,
okay, dead. Okay.
And you get people to handle it, and it causes this like chemical response in your body. You get a histamine blast from just handling the things.
Yeah.
And that always, again, unnerving art.
Unnerving, okay.
So with the light traps, the long-term goal is the size of the hole is limited by the size of the box.
Yeah.
So if I can make a box the size of a house, I can make the hole like 2 meters tall.
Oh, okay,
which I think will really be unnerving.
Yeah.
I think it's I think it will scale.
Increase the unnerving until it's max unnervingness. Yeah. Okay, nice. So that happens, and you end up going into the family business. Then this whole there's a crypto art revolution that happened that you were on pretty early, right?
Well, and that's what's so frustrating to me is so I mined a couple Bitcoin with my roommate in college back in the day.
Lightflex.
Well, and he lost the hard drive. I don't know what happened.
Oh, he didn't lose the hard.
Right?
He's just got a new Rolex on. He's like, dude, I lost the hard drive. I don't know what's going on, man. Yeah.
You like my new boat?
Yeah.
But when I had to take over the family business, running a physical rehab hospital is intense. It's a very intense job.
Yeah.
And so as CryptoPunks were dropping, I was max distracted.
Yeah.
I was I kind of vaguely aware of them at the time. And then in 21, my original plan was to go into industrial scale weed production. And we had a facility picked out we were going to use. We had everything planned and ready. And somebody swept in and outbid us on the building. Just crazy. But this guy had 2 747s that he would fly back and forth to China. He would fly them over filled with beef and fly them back filled with consumer electronics.
Oh my God! Okay,
right? It was a great business till the tariffs hit.
Yeah.
But the facility we wanted was right next to Amarillo Airport, and so it was valuable to him for the same reasons it was valuable to us. And so when that fell apart, I kind of went home to just figure out what I was going to do instead, or where we were going to look next. And I started just fooling around with shit coins and meme coins and didn't do great at that, but that led me back to NFTs.
Yeah.
And I remember a few months before that, I remember looking at the CryptoPunks marketplace and being like, you money launderers know everyone can see you, right? We can all see this.
I always say the world's worst money laundering
right?
device ever. What are you talking about, guys?
It's terrible. But fortunately, it clicked soon enough. I mean, credit to Beanie's post.
Really?
Yeah,
Beanie. Oh, wow,
100%,
shout out Beanie.
Man. 21, Beanie opened a lot of people's eyes.
Oh, I read every Beanie post. When Beanie was on a Twitter space, it was hi guys, we're hanging out at dinner. I gotta go. And you're like, why? I'm like, it's hard to explain. This guy's kind of an asshole, but he's got good info and a lot of info. Thank you, Beanie, for Wolf Game. Thank you, Beanie. No, a lot of Pixel Vault, Wolf Game. Those were me following Beanie back in the day. So.
And I mean, that's Pixel Vault was kind of my entry.
Oh, really? Interesting.
I was the third. It was Beanie, then Dingling, then me.
Oh,
I was the
wow!
third holder of Pixel Vault at one point.
I didn't realize that. It's amazing. Yeah.
And it was that kind of became everything else I've done since then.
Totally.
It's been through the Pixel Vault. I very nearly round tripped a lot of it. Yeah. As we all did.
Well, at one point, Pixel Vault it's just even hard to explain, right? Because the early Pixel Vault days where it was you're minting one thing. And then you just keep getting more and more and more and more. And it's all worth money. And you're like, this is never going to run out until they said, buy planets. And then it was just spend 6 ETH on planets. And then it's, Yeah. It's funny to actually, this is random. We're going to talk more art in a second here. But Pixel Vault, they're still going right now. They're going. It's
and
they're making
things.
updates. Yeah. Are you still holding any Pixel Vault?
I have some, what are we calling them now? Not inhabitants. They're back to being meta heroes now.
No, they're meta heroes. They went back. Inhabitants, then meta heroes, then
I had 80 meta heroes at one point.
80.
And just watched them go up to 8 ether and back down again. And I mean the Pixel Vault comics, they minted for 0.2 ether. Everybody laughed at them, and they didn't mint for a long time.
Oh, I remember. No, yes, it was wild. Yes,
I showed up to Web3 basically the last day the Pixel Vault mint was open.
Really?
I minted 3, and then I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning, I was like, oh shit, that's genius. That's such a good idea. Yeah. And I went to mint more, and it was done.
It was done,
They had minted out that night, and so I just attacked secondary for as many as I could get. And they ran to 15 ether for the comics from 0.2 in a couple months. It was madness.
Oh, yes. I did too, and I remember every day I was like, more comics. What's wrong with me? What did I do? And oh man.
And then at the peak, I'm sitting there being like, oh yeah, I own 1% of the new Marvel.
1% of the new Marvel. Yeah.
But no, it didn't. That's not how it worked out.
So from there, because that Pixel that was an era where people were talking a lot about the gamification, the mechanics, all this this wacky world. We don't know what the rules are, and we're all laying them out in front of us. Yeah. And then now you're so deep in the art world. So when did it end up being? Because you're already an artist before. When did you end up going okay? What are the NFT artists doing over here? Okay, I'm sick of PvPing versus these comic book collectors.
Pretty immediate. I was collecting art within a week of the punks.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It was pretty immediate. I have one of Lucrese's first 5.
Okay, nice. Yeah,
and that was one of my first one of ones that I actually splashed out.
Wow, I know you're such like a top collector of Lucretia. Like I didn't realize that you were that early on too.
Yeah,
nice.
number 5, Monster number 5.
Oh wow, nice. Well, so how did you? So as an artist who already came from an art background before, how did you like evaluate what you liked and what you were looking for over here?
Yeah, I tell people you kind of find the art. You fall in love with the art, but you end up investing, if that's the right word for it. That's a little mercenary, but you end up investing in artists. You find them through the art, but ultimately it's finding artists who are prolific and consistent and can communicate why they do what they do.
I was gonna say that's why you're a Jack Butcher collector. I'm like that's you just described Jack Butcher to the best communicator I've ever seen. Like so good, like you're saying, persistent, exactly. Yeah.
I'm a big believer in supply. Like I think that the whole fixation on scarcity has hurt artists, it's hurt collectors, it's hurt the space, which is funny because a lot of the perception of 21 is like, oh, everybody over minted and that crashed the market.
Yeah.
It's like, no, the demand just wasn't there. It wasn't. We didn't produce too much supply. We failed to explain to people why what we're doing is important. And,
totally.
And so, Jack, Dez are two that just stand out for that reason. I'll tell the story that Dez told me that when he was a kid, he overheard a dad talking to his son about like consistency is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And that this random other person's dad, it stuck in his head.
Love that. Yeah.
And when he said that to me, I was like, no, it really is. Because like you think about people, it's the consistency.
100%.
Made $70 million and showed up to work the next day.
I always tell everyone they're all because you hear people like, what is? I'm like AI slop garbage. I go, I dare you to get that many days in a row. I dare you.
Yeah.
There's no way you're gonna wake up one day. I'm a little hungover. It's a little tired. Guess what? He's out there still putting out shit. Like I want to, dude. People's darkest days where obviously you can save some stuff up and like that, but like, you can't match that consistency over time.
Yeah. The other one that I think is underappreciated in that regard is Song a Day, Jonathan Mann.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Genius stuff.
Amazing.
And they trade for nothing.
Yes. No. Yes. I actually, huge Jonathan Mann fan, and I'm one of my biggest regrets. This is so silly in NFTs is I didn't buy the Kevin song. Do you know the song he made for Kevin?
Yeah.
I listen to it still to this day. I love that song. The lyrics in it. I DM them like, dude, like doesn't know why he's born into this world. You know what I mean? Like everything's on fire. Everything's a mistake. I was like, dude, this is actually hitting me emotionally. And then the character is such a timepiece in the world of like, you don't understand, guys. This guy was. Everyone minted paid the most money, and this is what they got. Man, I'm a huge fan.
He's so good. I had a few that I regretted, and finally I bit the bullet and like really watched one because it was the one when Apple did the ad where they crushed all the art stuff.
Yeah.
I fucking hate this. That song. I grabbed that one.
Nice.
Love
it was
that. Just too good. I listened to it.
But also, that's the fun. I mean, that's the Jonathan Mann, like the people styles. They comment on what's happening, throughout history. And so when you buy the one you like, you always have a story. You're like, why did you get this one? It's like, dude, let me tell you about that Twitter that day. It was the craziest day on Twitter you've ever seen. Yeah. So how do you like build your relationships with artists? That's one of the things too I've noticed with you since you're a good collector. And then it always seems like you know everyone. You actually are talking to them. Like, is it just cold outreach to the DMs and then slowly you build up something or?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost exclusively Twitter.
Okay.
I don't really do Discord. I try to kind of, and as an artist myself, I try to keep all my comms on Twitter because I feel like if you fragment your comms, people are inevitably missing stuff and
100%.
People resent being forced to join another Discord server. And so, Twitter DMs. And a lot of it is, I don't cold DM a lot of people. I'm fortunate now to be kind of in a position where people are DMing me enough.
Kind of big deal. I will remember, we were in New York and I remember Redbeard came where he goes, oh, Shripto. So honored to meet you. And I was like, damn, dude, I've been trying to meet Redbeard for like 2 years. And he walks up to you, was like, what an honor. And I was like, hi, I'm Began. Nice to meet you. You don't know me.
Last night was karaoke with Redbeard and Coldy and Jack Butcher.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Wait, is there any footage of this?
There is. Yeah.
Okay, but not public footage.
I've got
okay. We're gonna share it offline.
It's in 3D.
In 3D. Okay,
yeah,
nice.
My 3D camera. Yeah, they had Jack swinging Sweet Caroline. The
English
barkeeper was thrilled.
That sounds awesome.
We're like, Jaleel, you know this song, right? He says, no, we don't have Sweet Caroline in Germany. We were like, okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Watch. He turned and he was like, what is going on here?
Well, also trying to explain to that bartender, like, I don't know you know who that guy is, but he is like an insane artist.
Oh,
like,
Redbeard was on stage being like, this is the top selling artist in the world.
Oh, really?
He sold millions
intro
this year. Yeah, everybody's like, Redbeard, you got to stop shilling for 5 seconds.
Yeah. Hey, if you got a bag,
you
got
a
little
bag.
shill. Yeah. Well, no, that's another thing actually about like something like Bitcoin Nashville, these conferences. You get to hang out with. I mean, Coldy is legend beyond legend. Like we talk about art and remix culture, like that is Coldy to like a T. That's what we're built off. You can actually hang out with them at a random bar. Karaoke is like the wildest thing ever here.
Yeah. Oh, and there's been so many of experiences like that where you're sitting at the bar, kind of looking around and going like, maybe not all of these people end up in the history books, but a few of them.
100%. Actually, I was curious about that, right? So Toshin actually put out the book actually on NFTs.
Yeah.
They highlighted some different people here. Did you get a copy?
I did not. No.
Me neither.
No.
I need to get one. I still need to get one.
Yeah,
here.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah. Do you know who was any opinions on who was in there, who wasn't in there, anyone that was missing or not?
Yeah, I was kind of stuck in the middle of some very protracted negotiations at the time, and so I was I just didn't have the bandwidth, so I haven't even really. But shout out Coldy though. He was one of the first people I've ever talked to who has my obscure 3D camera. He's like obsessed with 3D photography.
No, you showed me this before. Wait, break this thing down again. Because it's like this is it's vintage, right?
Yeah,
you can't get them.
They haven't made this in years.
Yeah.
It's Fujifilm W3. If anybody likes stereography, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
They still to this day haven't made a better compact.
Yeah.
2 lenses, lenticular screen, so you can see the pictures in 3D as you take them. It's fantastic. So Fujifilm W3.
I was gonna say that's the thing. You talk to artists, and you're into some weird obscure thing. They're always into it. You're going to find one. You pull out a weird 3D camera that has been made for 10 years. It's going to be like, you're into 3D cameras too. Finally, I met someone. I keep having that combo, like hear about the most obscure stuff here.
Yeah.
Okay, so with this whole like NFT space, obviously you're a big collector there, but we got the Bob Mallory book here, right? You're reaching back into history, right? You're really looking back here. Like, I mean, I know a little bit of the Bob Mallory story, and it's just like endlessly fascinating to me. Do you want to give a little breakdown of who Bob Mallory is and how did he end up in your life?
Yeah, I'll give a little background. So Bob Mallory, born in 1917 in California, considered himself to be a disciple of the Mexican muralists, so Siqueiros and Orozco and Rivera. Studied with them for many, many years, returned to America, ended up in New York City, working in resins, industrial resins, inspired by Rivera's use of the industrial paints in his murals. Resins very nearly killed him. We have pictures of him up to his elbow in a 55-gallon drum of resin with no mask,
Oh, my God, yeah.
But part of the reason we kind of all understand how dangerous that is because of his poisoning. He was one of the most famous artists of the 50s. And so when he nearly died, it was news.
Totally.
He wrote an article called The Air of Art is Poisoned. I actually talked to an artist. We interviewed an artist about a year ago who said that article saved his life.
Really?
He was a kid working with resins, and he read that article and was like, oh, shit.
Wow, yeah.
And that's
why that kid was Tyler Hobbs.
That's why, like prior to that, art supplies didn't have to be labeled the same way industrial materials did.
Yeah.
So it'd be the same chemical.
Yeah.
But you can sell it to artists. Who cares? They'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Who cares? They're dumb artists, idiots. They might kill themselves, but whatever.
So Air Art is Poisoned is what kind of brought about the modern labeling of materials like that. But the punchline was he could no longer work with the resins, which is what he was famous for at the time. He could no longer function in New York City because the air was too soupy, so he had to get out of town. And so as a result, his career basically went from 100 to 0 overnight. Yeah. The change in style and medium, and some artists will attest to this, alienated his existing collectors. An artist that's a good example of this, Violet Bond, used to do pottery. She still does pottery, but her focus was pottery.
Yep.
And she would gather dirt from a place and use that to make the clay, build a kiln, and everything was stuff that she could collect with her hands from a small area, right? And that's a very cool, very specific practice. And so when she pivoted to performance art, or if you want to call it that, but basically performance art, she told me it alienated a lot of her existing collectors. Totally. And the same thing with Bob. He was in the MoMA, the Whitney, the Rockefeller collection, but they loved the trash and assemblage stuff. The digital they had no interest in it. And so, as a result, he pivoted to digital because you can't get poisoned by ones and zeros. Produced a huge body of digital work from the 60s through the 80s. Pivoted to Photoshop, produced a huge body of Photoshop work, and then passed away in 1997. his family kept everything in his studio for 20 years. And finally got tired of paying the taxes. It's a house in Massachusetts, so it's worth good money.
Yeah.
So they finally sold the place, put everything into shipping containers, which is where it ended up in 2019. And then 2021, I'm talking to one of my business partners, and I said, I described the God Mode Fidenza sale, the $8 million Fidenza.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, oh, so generative art's like worth money now. And I was
I
like, yeah, it's worth a lot of money. Yeah. He's like, I think I know where there's like a shipping container full of that stuff on the East Coast. I was like, no, you don't. That's absurd. But no, it's 2 shipping containers. And it's a huge amount of the trash and assemblage work, bronzes, resin pieces, paintings and drawings from when Bob was 8 years old through to the period in Mexico, and then through to seemingly 99% of his digital output ended up in that shipping container, because there was zero interest in his life. I say zero. He showed at the university galleries. He would travel to digital art conferences and show his work.
He was still in the scene trying, but it just wasn't like MoMA wasn't giving him the stamp of
exactly.
Welcome, Bob.
Like and so he was very active. I talked to Manfred Moore. Manfred Moore is like 20 years younger than all the earlier guys, so he was kind of the kid rebel, didn't have access to official machines, so he'd have to sneak in and use people's plotters. And
I love the idea of, get off my plotter, what are you doing?
Here,
I'm making art, I gotta go.
And he was going to a conference once in Kansas City on digital art, and he's sitting on the plane, and Bob Mallory enters, and they'd never met, but he recognized him. And as Bob comes in, he goes, oh, you're Bob Mallory. And Bob's like, yeah, you're Manfred Moore. And so he was very plugged in.
Totally,
but seemingly almost none of the work sold in his lifetime. And then when he passed away, a number of gallerists came and looked at the studio. Paul McCarthy in L.A., the performance artist, which if you're familiar with the piece The Artist, my theory is that in that piece, which I think you would enjoy, he's mocking Bob in a loving way.
Wait, break the piece down. Explain.
It's McCarthy with his usual facial prosthetics that he would wear during his performance art, talking in a voice that sounds like Bob's voice, which is very distinct. He had a very high kind of nasal voice, and so it's McCarthy seemingly doing a Bob Mallory impression, and using a giant paintbrush to paint paintings that look like Bob's.
Yeah.
And so I'm not 100% sure that's the case, but he was a student of Bob's. Like literally, he took courses with Bob, and is a huge fan. There are a few major artists who are obsessed with Bob.
Yeah.
And it's funny, 95% of people, you say Bob Mallory, they go, who? The other 5% are like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
So when you first see the shipping container, we're going to go see it. Like, what was it like when you first actually were taken there? You got to crack, because you went actually in the container, right? Got to crack it open and say, what's inside here? Because it could be a bust. You never know. It could be, anything.
Very much, yeah. So we had a pretty good idea what we were getting into, because my business partner was in touch with Bob's last agent, Mitch Algus, who runs a gallery in the Village in New York. Incredible gallerist. Big name from the late 20th century abstract expressionist gallery scene. And he had a pretty good idea, roughly what was in there, but we didn't know what kind of condition it was going to be in. We didn't have any idea of the scale of it. We knew there was going to be a lot, but it's an insane amount of work. And so we went. It was in New Haven, Connecticut, the shipping yard, which is funny because we ended up going back to New Haven. We did a show with Yale at CCAM, and they have a piece on permanent loan there at Yale. If anybody's in New Haven and knows the CCAM program, they have a marble 3D print that we reproduced.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
So we went to the shipping yard. The containers were up in the stacks, so they had to get them down out of the stacks for us.
Also, that's so scary. You're like, don't hurt the art. What are you bringing down? That could be worth millions. Yeah.
Well, and shipping it, because I shipped it to Texas.
Yeah.
And the challenge was getting it off the truck on the other end, because I don't have a crane at my facility.
You don't have a crane?
I know, right? I was unprepared.
I thought you'd have a crane. Okay, yeah.
I should, but I don't. And so we had to basically pull the trucks in and unload from the containers directly into the warehouse, rather than try to get the containers off the trucks. So they brought them down. The key that the Mallorys gave us didn't work, so we cut the locks off. They gave us
you're like, I have this thing. It's in Dallas, and you're just like, oh my god.
No, this is in New Haven.
Oh, okay.
They bring them down in New Haven. We try the key. It doesn't work. We cut the locks off.
Yeah.
I actually brought a videographer with me because
Nice.
we were like,
Smart.
there's a decent chance this is going to be interesting.
Yes.
And so I brought a Harvey Wang, amazing videographer, did a lot of cool photography in New York in the 80s. And,
Nice.
He came with us, filmed the process. Mason, who's my creative director, who's worked with me the whole time, like this is his work. This book is
Nice, yeah.
all Mason. He and I opened it up. We were able to, it was volumetrically packed. Like this stuff was Tetris, right? But we were able to, kind of open some drawers in the front, get an idea of what we were looking at. And I opened a couple drawers and was like, we have to,
we're good. It's like, it's Storage Wars. When you open it up, you're like, okay, it's good. Okay, shut up. I'll take the bid. I got it. It's me. No one look at any more of what's in there.
Yep. So we went back to the family with Mitch Algus. He came with us, kind of acted as the go-between to a degree. And we negotiated to buy the shipping containers, all of Bob's work that had remained at Mitch Algus's gallery, which there was a decent amount.
Yeah.
It's just Mitch hates selling work.
Okay.
Like, it's his,
I got to be honest, not the best move for a gallery.
It's That's
a little rough.
Anytime he sells work, it just kills him.
Yeah.
He needs to sell it, but you can see how much it hurts him. And so he had held on to a lot of Bob's work that hadn't sold over the years and had it at his gallery there. And then Bob's son, Mike Mallory, who wrote the first 3D printing program, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
The
family is like technical. They're all nice.
Mike has like 100 patents.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Mike's brilliant. Partway through the negotiations, Mike took his belt off so he could use it to explain his theory of electron spin to me.
Okay, there you go. It's beautiful. Yeah.
He's a lot of fun. So we negotiated with them to acquire all the works at the house, the gallery, in the shipping containers, all of the IP of any code-based work that Bob ever did.
Nice.
And then the IP for anything that was actually in the containers, and then non-exclusive life rights, so we can produce media about Bob. So can they?
Yeah, totally.
It's just become kind of the center of my work since then, and we're still processing work.
No, totally. Yeah.
And we have the code. That's one of we haven't really gone down that rabbit hole too far yet, but we have Fortran decks from the first 3D printing programs. If you stacked up all of the, like basic green sheet code, probably 3 feet tall.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
It's a huge amount of code. And so one of the long-term plans is to get all that code modernized, get it on chain, and not even necessarily to make something where you can like mint new works, but something where you can just hit the button and see
totally
more iterations from the same code.
Yeah, I'm going to do the boringest stream ever for some people and the best for others. I just want to sit there and do a whole code review. Yeah. We'll just sit there and say, okay, what was Bob doing? What's his style? Where are the comments? Because I'll tell you what, for artists that actually use code, comments will have like literally pieces of philosophy, pieces of insane little things, or you'll see someone so frustrated, like, this doesn't work, and I don't give a fuck, and I'm moving on. And you really see emotions like that.
Yeah. And he it's heavily notated.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah, everything's very notated. We have more than 10,000 primary documents.
Oh my God.
Like notes, manuscripts, recordings, reel-to-reels. Bob was an amazing pianist.
Oh, really?
Like if he hadn't been an artist, he would have been a concert pianist. And so we have probably 40 hours of him playing piano.
Nice.
It's just everything under the sun that you could want.
Yeah, really. So this is such an interesting path, right? This is like, you're an artist and you're a collector too, but now this is like a different role. This is like really stepping on, like you're like preserving his legacy. You're spreading the legacy. You're the main like patron of someone, which you see like a bunch of artists. If you got all the famous artists, typically there's like, it's not 1 million people like Picasso. You know what I mean? There's like some major collectors who are the people that like push it. Like, how did you feel like stepping into that role? Is that something you like wanted to do already? Did you just stumbled upon it? Like,
I mean, I think it's something I'm kind of weirdly qualified for because of my background. So when I had to take over the family business in 21, part of that involved dealing with my dad's collections. My dad was a hoarder with tastes and money.
Yeah.
And so he had filled
the most dangerous hoarders on earth.
He had filled 80,000 square feet of warehouse space with guns and motorcycles and cars and books and everything you can imagine. And he was an eidetiker. He remembered where everything was. He could tell you the serial numbers on all the guns.
Wow.
And so there was no rhyme or reason to it. There was no record keeping. And so dealing with his collections was excellent practice.
Totally.
For dealing with Bob's work. Because Bob was very fastidious and great at documentation to the point that I'm like, this dude had OCD.
Oh, yeah. Calm down, Bob. I don't need to read every.
But what happened was when I first acquired the stuff, the family said, it's good that someone's dealing with this because we hired a kid a few years ago to try to sort all this stuff, and he wasn't able to get it done. I come to find out later the kid was a 45-year-old man with a family who died of a heart attack in the stacks.
Oh my God,
like,
really?
While in the studio.
Just stressed out like, Bob!
Yeah. But it's worse to have somebody do like 20% of the job.
Yeah, I feel
right. Like, so we've tried to kind of maintain forensic order of stuff. We find a stack, we scan it in that order.
Totally.
But is that the order that Bob put it in, or is that the order that the kid put it in? I don't know. So there's a little bit of a challenge there, but it's not a dissimilar challenge to what I dealt with my dad. And because of dealing with that with my dad, I had built a 4,000 square foot air conditioned warehouse to have flex space to deal with his collections. I had just really finished dealing with all of his stuff when we found these containers. So I
you were like, I'm bored now. I've gone through a million guns, motorcycles, and cars. I need something new. Let's look through art.
Let's do art now. So it's all these guns. It's like 20 gun safes full of art.
Really? Yeah. Really, gun safes.
It's all in gun safes. Because that's what we had. And so I weirdly enough had a lot of practice. And when I went to school I got a business degree, but it took me forever because I was always in the studio. And it was at a computer science school, which at the time was like, what a weird, but no, that's what this was practice for all of this.
No, that's what I was saying. Yeah, business at a computer science school. What a mix that leads you to this wacky world here. So now you're doing a bunch of stuff. Like, so for even here, you just handed this to me. I'm excited to actually go through it here. Like, you're now producing like media based around Bob, right? You want to break down like, well, how did you come up with like the ideas, or like how do you plan to say, okay, great, we need to make a book. We got to start showing stuff. We need to make, a bot so people can talk to a AI bot, things like that.
The historical inspiration for the way we're handling stuff is Joe Bonger.
Don't know who that is.
So when Vincent van Gogh died, or Van Gogh, if you want to be
real snob.
Porsche.
When they say Van Gogh, you go, okay, cool. I guess you don't really study art. Okay, sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Getting my Porsche to go see a Van Gogh.
Yeah.
When he passed away, he had sold one piece, a pity sale, to his brother, who was a gallerist. And so when he passed away, he left everything to his brother, Theo. And everybody kind of famously goes, oh, Theo did it. Theo's the one. But no, Theo died immediately. Like, Theo inherited the work and dropped dead. Yeah. His wife inherited the work from him. So at one point, Joe Bonger owned 100% of the work of Vincent van Gogh.
That is insane.
Right?
Complete collection. That's the dream. Okay, as a collector, I got to say, like, 100% is like really appealing to me. But
that's kind of part of the challenge with some of the Bob stuff, because we have complete series, and it's like, oh no, I don't want to break it up.
Yes.
So, and so Joe was really the inspiration for the way we handle things. And Joe's big breakthrough was to realize that, like, yeah, Vincent was a good painter, but nobody cares. Nobody cares about the paintings. What people care about is the artist and the story and the biography. And so, like, 100%. She's the reason we know about him cutting his ear off in the insane asylum. And like, the story of she pushed the story of Van Gogh with the understanding that you would then go, well, where do you have the art? Can I get some of the art?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What a good story. Like,
a great story.
What does the art look like? Yeah.
And that's one thing with Bob Mallory that I noticed really early on is, like, he's like the Forrest Gump of 20th century American art. He's just always in the room. Yeah. He's friends with Rauschenberg and Jasper Johns. He's sleeping with Willem de Kooning's wife for years. Like, he's just...
A couple people were, but yeah.
Well, yeah. Oh. This is... I've got a story for after the interview about that. I ran into somebody who was like, their dad was also sleeping with...
Oh, really?
Yeah. But they didn't understand that. They were telling us the story, and I was sitting there listening to the story, and I was like, your dad was totally sleeping with the lady.
Yeah. You're putting it together like
100%. Oh yeah, my mom hated her, and she and my dad would hang out and drink all night. And I'm like, okay,
wouldn't come home. That's pretty funny. Back in that art scene, people always remember too, like, these artists back in the day, like, it is a young crowd of, young horny artists, you know what I mean? People were, Rauschenberg's got pieces where, he might have had sex with other artists on them before they were sold, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And Elaine and Willem had an open marriage. Like, everybody knew what was up. Bob's wife knew what was up, too. It wasn't like they were sneaking around.
Totally. It's the art scene. It's come on, guy.
Well, and it was when Bob got poisoned. His wife was like, "Okay, you gotta pick."
Yeah.
And he picked his wife. To his credit. And I've had some pushback on this from some of the people around at the time, but I can't help but wonder if breaking up with Elaine de Kooning and then leaving did his career any favors.
No, yeah.
She was hugely influential.
Yeah, totally, 100%.
And so I can't imagine that helped.
No, yeah.
And so, thinking about the way that Joe Bonger handled Van Gogh, and then looking at how interesting Bob's life is, because he was a avowed communist in the 20s.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Like a serious communist in the 20s, and that's why he went to live with the Mexican muralists. They were all communists. Yeah. I'm blanking on the name of the workshop. The People's Graphic Workshop in Spanish, but I forget.
I was saying if that's wrong, that sounds right though.
It's what it works out to be.
The People's Workshop's good. That's hot.
Yeah. And so he went down there and he did a bunch of prints, and they were doing anti-Nazi art while they were still putting Hitler on magazine covers.
Yeah.
Like they were way ahead of the curve. Being like, this guy is trouble.
I was hating Hitler before it was cool to hate Hitler. Cool. Yeah.
And so, for a mid 20th century American, his politics were hugely problematic.
Totally.
But didn't
that's
really
the key
seem
for a
to hold
good,
him
successful artist. You want not problematic politics. You got to find where's the Overton window. You want to get in line. Just say you call the Democratic Party. We're either side. You can pick a side and just say, "What do you guys need? I got art for you."
It doesn't seem to have held him back though at all. But and so the arc of this guy born in California in 1917, living with the communists in Mexico, coming back, getting poisoned. This interesting affair. So it's an interesting story. Like we don't even have to really gild it at all. It's a very cool story.
Yeah.
And so one of our long-term plans is to do like a dramatic biopic.
Okay,
about
nice.
Bob,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you're seeing him interact with all the other artists. You kind of use it to give context to the time in a way. Because I feel like we all know the names of those artists, but we don't really know a lot about their relationships to each other and where people were operating out of. And so kind of telling that story, I think, has a lot of potential. And so just seeing how, as I learn more and more about Bob and seeing how interesting his life really was, I am not a great salesman if the product isn't amazing.
Yeah, totally.
I can't do it. I can't lie and be like, oh, look how great this is if it's not actually that cool. Yeah. And so I'm very fortunate that no, really, you don't have to really embellish with Bob. Totally. He really was kind of in the room all the time.
One thing too, like a bunch of artists, sometimes if you're an artist and you're pursuing a path that it's not necessarily mainstream successful, but you keep pushing and you're in those circles, you end up in more interesting, wacky, weird places than just I was always in, it's, success and fall is sometimes less interesting.
Well, and ironically, one of his biggest promoters and collectors for many years was Philip Johnson, famously quite the Nazi.
Interesting. Yeah.
He was, the most prominent architect of the late 20th century, and he did the 1964 New York World's Fair. He designed all the buildings. He curated the work, and we have a piece. The other shipping container was a piece called Cliffhangers, which was the centerpiece of the New York Pavilion at the 1964 World's Fair, which Johnson commissioned because people were leaving the fair in a good mood. And he was like, no, the Cold War is still going on.
This sounds like a Nazi.
Oh, yeah, he's not a good guy. He, at one point, Hitler tried to talk Johnson into moving to Germany to become, an official. Yeah, and he went and visited and, considered it.
Yeah. He did the interview.
Yeah, he did the interview.
Which, if we could have a recording of that would be the most interesting conversation probably of all time. He's like, we got big plans over here. You don't understand. We're about to...
And Johnson was hugely influential. I mean, and everybody knew what he was, and he was still hugely influential. And so he was the one that kind of pushed Bob to the Rockefellers. He's why the Rockefellers collected a lot of Bob. There's a funny story about Nelson Rockefeller, when he was the governor in New York, had a bunch of Bob's work in the governor's mansion. Yeah. The governor's mansion had a huge fire, one of the wings burned up completely. And they were hauling all the burned art out and setting it in the yard. And then they hauled out the unburned Mallorys because they look like they've been in a fire. and were setting in the burn
they thought
pile.
they were. Yeah, yeah.
They thought they'd been burned, and so when they did an exhibit later of the burned work, Nelson made sure to include Bob's
it's funny.
dressed up, and would tell people it had been burned up. But no, it was just his style. The resin work is really dark, and that's what Cliffhangers is. Cliffhangers is an assembly of 7 tuxedos that have been dipped in resin, the 55-gallon drum of resin. Yeah. We have the receipts for Philip Johnson bullying Union Carbide into giving him the resin.
Really?
For free. Yeah.
Well, what was the price? How much were you paying for resin back then? Free resin.
Okay, he bullied Union Carbide into giving him 55-gallon drums of resin for free.
Yeah.
And it seems, based on the timing, that Cliffhangers is what did it, what pushed him over the line.
Really? Okay.
Poisoned him. Yeah. But it was specifically, Philip Johnson was watching people leave the fair, smiling and having a good time. And he was like, no, the Cold War's still going on. Like, this is not the vibe I was going for.
Yeah.
And so he commissioned Cliffhangers to bring the mood down at the World's Fair. Yeah. So if you remember the end of Men in Black when they're fighting to get to the UFOs to escape?
I maybe think so.
Yeah. It's been a minute.
I've definitely seen it, but yeah.
The base of that building is where Cliffhangers
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I forget the name of the park in New York,
Yeah.
but and so it's a wild story. The guy had a really cool ride, and he lived to be 80. He lived many, many years after the poisoning. Now, there's reason to think that he eventually did die of complications of the poisoning.
Oh, really? Yeah. Even to 80.
But at 80, like, you had a good run.
No, 80's a good run. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm hoping for 80. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll take 80 here. Well, you bring up like a great point about like often like it's not just art; it's always the stories, right? We always talk about why is the Mona Lisa so valuable, and it's like the Mona Lisa getting stolen really helped that story. I always use the example of, Dali only walked his anteater once. He didn't actually have an anteater. It wasn't
Because I was always like, what the fuck do you feed an anteater?
No. He went out one day. He made sure the paparazzi was there, and everyone's like, "This motherfucker has an anteater." And
that's fantastic.
That photo is one of the greatest photos of. How many photos? There's like 2 of them, or there's not that many. It's because guess what? He wasn't actually at home like feeding the anteater. But
that checks out.
But it built the secret for him. But it builds up like the story, the character, the interesting part. Like,
did he really have an ocelot, or was that fake too?
I think all of his animals are fake.
Oh,
I think all of it. See, you're an actual animal. You've had some great. Well, that's the problem. It's so funny. This happens a lot to you. See, is where someone fakes something, people think it's real, and then people start doing it for real. You're like, well, I want to be a big artist, so I want to get an exotic animal. Dolly had an ocelot. Might as well get one.
I'm gonna start ordering ants.
Yeah, I got to double check if the ocelot. I don't think it is. I'm gonna have to go back. I need to get on my Dolly tip. So. When you do that, though, you're like, you're studying, you're learning his history. Then how do you spread it? How do you tell people, okay, let me sit down. Let me explain. Here's who Bob is. Here's who we knew,
Well, the first challenge is that the story sounds like total bullshit.
Yeah.
You have to really document it to death.
Yeah.
To have it not just sound like total nonsense. And that really was the first year this happened. I didn't tell anybody. Yeah. I told Lucrece and Mendez and a couple people what I was working on. But by and large, I just kept it to myself because I needed enough documentation that I just didn't sound like a psycho.
I bought a shipping container of the greatest artist of all time. He knows everyone. I have all the art. You're like, what? No, trust me. You haven't heard of him, but he's the best.
He's the best. And everything is the best in Web3. This is the best protocol. That's the best token. You don't have the best PFP.
Yeah.
And so to come in and be like, no, really, he was the best, though.
Yeah.
No, really. That's the challenge. This is such a noisy space. It's such a noisy world.
Yes.
To kind of make enough noise in a believable way.
Yeah. I've been telling people, we're going to put a little, it's no more artists, just going to put a little cap on it for a little minute. We're going to catch up everyone. So no more art. Yeah. We're all going to catch up and then we'll open the cap up once we have more capacity. Yeah.
Yeah. We're at capacity. And so, things like this book, we've done a number of short films now. This book is going to be redeemable. This exists as a token.
Oh, nice.
So people will be able to burn the token to claim the physical.
Nice.
I had a platform all picked out for it, and it didn't work out.
Oh,
so
really?
we're figuring out the logistics of that right now.
He'll tell me off camera who that was.
Yes, I will. And doing short films, we have 35 hours of Netflix grade footage shot of interviews with his family, his assistants, Manfred Moore, Kevin McCoy. We talked to about plotters now. You know?
Awesome. That's awesome.
When Mason went out to interview Kevin, I said, just don't even talk about NFT. Don't bring up NFTs.
Yeah. Just
everybody wants to talk about NFTs. Talk to them about plotters.
No, plotter. It's more interesting actually to me.
Yeah. Oh, and he's doing such cool stuff with plotters now. So the room where he invented NFTs is now his plotter workshop.
Really. That's awesome. I will say, Kevin did one of my favorite pieces. It was. Hopefully, I'm not wrong on this. Right? I think it's called. Is it Artist Talk? He did a piece where I might be wrong. I think I'm not though. Where he got, I think, like 16 artists together, and they are going to present. 16 actors together. They're going to present art. They don't know what the art is. They get on stage and they go, so I worked on this piece for 4 years. It's literally, you're going to watch just actors, and they literally go, next slide. Oh boy. So so this means a lot to me because you could see it's red. It's so beautiful. Like, I
actually just I bought a 6th of Horror Chase. Are you familiar with Horror Chase?
No.
Horror Chase is so cool. It's probably my favorite piece from like the early 2000s. 2002 this was made. It's an edition of 4 or 5. But I bought a 6th of the artist proof with 2 other collectors, and we're donating it to a museum.
Sick.
And it's Kevin and Jen built a model of the cabin from Evil Dead.
Okay, cool.
Like a perfect replica.
Totally. Yeah, all the early stuff was these like mini models they were doing together.
But this is 1-to-1.
Okay,
full size.
Oh, full size.
Full
okay,
size,
wow.
1-to-1 replica of the Evil Dead cabin. And then they chase an actor through the cabin.
Yes. Oh, I gotta look at this piece then.
Yeah,
yes.
Second person, you're the killer chasing this guy through the cabin, right?
Also, that's such a good mix for their art because their art was always like this, like modeling, and then they mixed in this artist series. They did multiple actors. They did multiples with actors. Like, what a good mix of what they've done.
No, it's such a cool piece. And they built the set in 7 days, shot in 1 day.
Yeah.
And they got enough material that what you end up with is this aluminum briefcase with a hard drive and a computer inside of it, and it pairs with a projector, and the projector shows continuous, never repeating, generative second-person horror chase.
Oh my God, sick!
And you can't even see the seams. Like, I watched this thing for a while. Like, how are they doing this?
Yeah.
And it's just this guy like fleeing for his life through this cabin continuously forever.
Totally. What year was that?
2002.
That's the thing. Jesus Christ. Every time you look at them,
it's early. They're always early.
Always. Yeah. Also, they've done the because. See, I just look at the art. I don't know. Mm-hmm. They have the most romantic, like all the early art. They have their first date as like they've got the first movie they watched together. I'm like going through their art history, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know this is like you just right away were like, cool, we're together. Let's make our first date some art. Hey, we watch a movie together. Let's make that some art. It was really like an interesting like self-documenting like.
Yeah, and I made the same mistake I've made a couple times earlier when we were discussing this earlier of saying Kevin McCoy. It's not Kevin McCoy. It's Kevin and Jen. They are a creative unit, certainly. It's remarkable. They've got a very cool little studio in Brooklyn.
Oh, really? Oh, I would love to visit. Yeah,
it's half the size of this room.
Really?
It's tiny. It is so cool.
Yeah, I got to be honest. That's how expensive Brooklyn real estate. The person who did the first NFT of all time, has a studio. We're in a small room right now. If you guys can't see, but yeah.
And it's. I think it's an old like carriage, like the old garage.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
From back in the day, and it's a small space. They do shows with their friends there.
Awesome.
Basically. When I was there, they had a bunch of the little models.
Nice. I was gonna say they do sometimes work in the miniature, so maybe you can have a small studio if you're working small.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, they're making good. And their actual creative studio is much bigger.
Okay, gotcha.
That's
gotcha.
the little showing.
Okay,
space.
Good. I need a.
Yeah, gallery. I'm sorry. Yeah, gallery would be the term, not studio.
Good.
Yeah, their studio space is really cool. Lots of really cool plotter stuff going on.
Like
plotters with charcoal sticks.
Yeah.
They're doing some very cool. He has. They're talking about one that goes on glass.
Okay. Yeah.
Vertical. They're doing windows and. But yeah, no, they're amazing. They're do the intro for the next Bob book.
Oh, really? They are.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
And we got a
that is
great
so great.
interview.
Awesome.
Mason's done a lot of interviews. Said it was one of the best he's ever
Really,
done.
really.
So,
I mean, their history is so. I mean, when I went to go sit down, I'm like, let me go through their art history, and I'm like, guys, we're gonna be here for 5 more hours. This is gonna be a minute. And then some of them, well, actually, like some of them, I can't even like see everything. Like I hear about the piece, I see a couple pics, and I'm like, I need more archives to actually like fully experience stuff. It's actually, since you're in this archiving world, I feel like, you know, when you look at other artists like that who are so, I don't know, legendary, it's like, more pictures, more stuff. I need everything.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and that's what I tell artists, you know, when they ask me like, or when I'm in discussions with artists about what I do as an archivist, and like, the advice for artists is like, it's very easy in Web3 to go, oh, I've got the chain, everything's on chain, it's indelible, it's there, but like that doesn't preserve your thoughts on the subject, your influences, 100%. Your, you know, and you've got that description box there. People put like, you know, oil on canvas.
100%. Oh my God, it drives me crazy. Or someone puts it like it's a generic third person, like someone it feels like someone else will write. It's like, this is a digital artifact of I'm like, who wrote this? Like
or it feels like GPT, and I'm like, really, you had to use GPT 100%. To write something about your own work?
Yes, 100%. I'll take misspellings. I'll take anything. I'll take like wacky. I'll take, you don't have to, you know what I mean? I want to feel the artist.
I love AI. I love AI art, but please write your own descriptions.
Yeah, totally.
Give us your insight into what it is. And that's what I tell artists is like, just document obsessively. Yeah. If you think you're documenting too much, you're probably not documenting enough.
Totally.
Do a favor to whoever comes along and tries to do what I'm doing.
Well, there's another interesting thing that you kind of like brought up earlier of like, it's not just about your art. It's about like the scene you're in. It's about the people you know. It's about the stories and the mix and the. It's like that makes everything more interesting. If you look at any time, like, you know, you read about Rauschenberg and you're just like, wait, sleeping with Jasper Johns? Wait. He's fighting with who? Wait, he's you know. It's like you start once all the characters are together in somewhere. I don't know. The world gets bigger and it just becomes more fascinating. I guess. You know, to me,
just like let us see the set and setting.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
totally.
Yeah. And that is a thing I think a lot of people in Web3 struggle with, because again, the work's indelible, generally speaking, and that it kind of breeds a little complacency around everything else.
Totally. So I know I got to let you go soon, but before we have, I have one more thing, is you're actually touching this traditional art world more, right? You're just in Art Basel. You're actually talking to galleries. You know, you're talking to, you know, various institutions, Yale, etc. Here, like, what's it like interacting with those like type of, you know, I don't know, I want to call individuals, people coming from this like more NFT, crypto, digital world?
It's very different. You know, the way they look at things and think about things and prioritize things is totally different. Yeah. You know, the vintage digital being a good example of that. You know, they're plotters, and they are in very, very good condition for being rice paper from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And well, you've seen the picture. They're great. They're in phenomenal condition. But then you go to the trad art world and they go, that corner is wrinkled.
Yeah.
I don't want this one. The corner is wrinkled. I'm like, well, guess what? They're all like that. If you like this artist, that's what's on.
They want a PSA 9.
Everybody wants
Bob
the PSA 9, and it's like, well, sorry, the PSA 9 doesn't exist. It's like,
totally.
It's not how that works.
Yeah.
But then you come back over to Web3, and people don't care.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, the provenance of this is what matters.
Totally.
The piece is what matters. I don't care that the corner is wrinkled or that there's a watermark here. And that attitude is very different. The barrier for entry in trad art is high.
Yeah.
You know,
you got to have an MFA from Yale.
Yeah, to a degree.
I'm lying to everyone and telling I have an MFA from Yale, and
man.
And guess what? They don't look it up. Everyone, they don't double check. They don't double check. Exactly.
I have never had to tell anyone what my GPA was or where I graduated.
100%.
Never comes up. And so we're all MFAs from Yale.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's one thing. You know, the Mallory stuff has just been an incredible door opener. Yeah. Like, I'm getting into rooms that I would never ever be able to get into. And as an artist myself, that's kind of exciting, because then I can be like, oh, you like the Mallory stuff? Look what I do.
Totally. Now that I have your attention,
I'll make you a better deal on this Mallory stuff if you put some of my stuff in the museum. It's a very different world, you know. And coming from Art Basel, you know, we talk about, oh, we're early, but no, really. 10 to 15,000 pieces on display at Basel, and
Yeah.
there were 2 pieces of digital, and it was both Vera Molnar.
Literally mind-blowing to me, because it's like, look at where we at in like the culture, the internet, everything, and you're like, 2 digital for the biggest art, that's wild.
Well, it's amazing to me that you don't have your Bill Gates and your Jeff Bezos and people who have kind of made their billions in technology. You would think would be bidding this stuff to the moon. What was interesting, Mayer Gallery was who showed the Molnars there. They have one of the largest collections of Mallory outside of our hoard. And they had a piece by Valdemar Cordero, if you're familiar. It's the first Brazilian digital artist. He kind of invented photo scanning, a very physical process he came up with. But his daughter now is in Web3. Nice. But Cordero did canvases as well. And the sort of Brazilian kleptocracy has bid these canvases up to hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
But you can still get a plotter for a few grand.
Oh, yeah.
Such a strange
little ARB opportunity. There you go. Yeah, okay. Thank you. That's alpha.
The premium that the traditional art world still places on oil on canvas is very real.
Interesting. Yeah.
There's a very clear hierarchy, and paperwork is not at the top of it.
Yeah.
It's canvases, it's sculpture, public work, and bigger is better. More is more.
Yes,
it was funny when I was in art school. My professors would always be like, "This could be bigger. It should be bigger. It should be bigger." I'm like, guys, it's always not everything should be bigger. No, they're right.
Yeah.
The market likes
honestly,
big.
like that's one of the first things when I got into like just whatever traditional art. I was just in DC going to museums. The scale hits you. It does. Because always you're like, oh wow, I'm surrounded. The Barnett Newman. You want to be consumed by the painting. It gets so close, you don't see anything
else. It becomes
else.
virtual reality to a degree if you get it big enough. It sounds trite and kind of oversimplifying, but more is more.
Then we go to NFT spaces and we have a screen this big showing the art.
And everything's square.
And everything, exactly. Who cares what the resolution or what's showing? Or we got some black bars in the side. You know what I mean? I'm like, I look at a Frank Stella. I'm like, the canvas is shaped like the art. And over here we have all this digital art, and we're like just 2 black squares in the side and
squares. Yeah. And you go outside of NFT space, square art is like Soviet television.
Yeah,
Everything else is a real aspect ratio, it's not square.
Yeah.
And so it's funny. So I feel like that's going to be a bit of a timestamp.
Like
square art, people will be like, "Oh, that's the."
I love that. I love that. So I'm going to make just circular digital art, and I'm fresh. I'm hot. I'm on the new stuff here. Mine's circular. Mine's a pentagon.
Well, and so like the escalation, one of my tokens that I minted, the physical shows as a diamond, but I had to mint it. Rotated.
Yeah.
So it's a square. I'm sitting here being like, well, square art, but it's square.
You got to have as long as your screen can rotate a little bit, right? You put it on the basic TV. You flip it.
Include the instructions in the description. Now rotate your screen 45 degrees.
Yeah, 100%. Every time you look, you look, you're supposed to go like this here.
Exactly.
Beautiful, dude. Swifto, we could literally talk for a million more hours. I know I got to let you go here. Super fun. What should we look forward to next on Bob stuff? Anything. I mean, you're in so much different worlds.
I haven't really minted much for the last year because I've been in these negotiations with my former business partners. Now I might be the first person in Web3 to un-VC myself. But now that that's sorted, I've got a big backlog of my work that I'm awesome. Happy to get back to minting. Yeah, I'm always preaching supply maxiism, but not minting anything myself. Which is critical.
Yeah, I'm trying to collect stuff, and you're always telling me that it's not that actually, it's not all about scarcity. I'm like, well, give me something. Okay?
Yeah, I have something to mint then. Yeah, so I'm excited to get back to minting my own work. I've got a few pieces queued up there. 35 hours of footage with the Bob stuff that we're going to be pulling from to make more shorts.
Beautiful.
The hope is to have a feature documentary probably Q2, Q3 of next year.
Okay, nice.
So we're just kind of getting started on that.
Yeah.
Now that we have the material.
Totally.
But yeah,
35 hours is a bit of material.
A bit over. Yeah. Black check contract is done.
Nice. Okay. Nice. You want to break that down really fast?
So it's a contract that will accept checks in exchange for.
We're saying Jack Butcher checks.
Jack Butcher checks. Yeah, it'll accept VV checks of all kinds. All 8 denominations of EV checks can be contributed to this aggregator. The aggregator dispenses you a token that can be freely exchanged back for your check at any time.
Nice.
And then once the aggregator achieves 4,096 total checks, it burns them into a black check.
Nice. The
And
black
yeah.
check, which is a very interesting, conceptual. If you've not dove into it, it's Go to Jack Butcher's Twitter. Read all the posts.
Yeah.
It's a fun. That's a nice Saturday activity. Just sit there and just
I still maintain the black check is one of the most interesting things that's ever happened in Web3 because it really forced people to think in a different way about burn mechanics. And to create a burn that is intended to be unachievable.
Totally.
I don't think anybody had ever done that before.
Yeah.
Right?
And then Schweppes was over here being like, "We will achieve it." Which is that's the key. An artist says, "I've done something you can't do," and then collectors and other artists go, "Oh no, and that tension is just so fun here.
So it's that deployment got delayed by the negotiations, but that's done now, and so the contract is done. We're doing audits, and then we should be ready to go.
Awesome. Beautiful. Make sure you follow Schwipto, amazing collector, one of my favorite people here. We're gonna stop for a little bit, wrap up for some other people. Thank you again. We'll talk more soon. We're gonna talk offline. He's gonna give me more alpha. He's gonna tell me. Bye guys. See you guys soon.